What's up, everybody? We got Joe Blewett from Jet X Factor stepping in to the studio. It's been a long time, probably over a year. So,
Mhm.
man, we were talking about just life before this because the Jets are not very fun to talk about, but we're gonna do it. New regime, new hope. So I kind of wanted to. Well, first of all, thanks for coming on the channel. Obviously,
Mhm.
Joe is part of Jet X Factor. I'll leave the links to their website in the description below. So go ahead and plug the site, plug your guys' baby there that you've created. How old is she now? What, 6, 7 years?
Yeah, no. We get 17 or 17-month old. Then we got another one coming on the way. I was caught
Yeah.
off guard there. Usually the intros, everybody's like the fancy intros in the middle of sipping the waters, bang, started. So a little bit surprising, but yeah, no. I'm glad to be back on. I think it's been almost probably closer to 2 years really since I've been on your channel. So it's been quite a bit. So excited to talk football with you. Not a lot going on right now, but I'm sure we could rehash some off-season happenings to discuss.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to step back. So some of this stuff is going to be a little bit older topics, but just because nothing is going on right now, just to reassess like the off season. And now that
Mhm.
it's like less emotional because all the disaster of last year is behind us. But obviously the Jets decide to make big changes at GM, head coach, quarterback. I think pretty much everyone is agrees that the coaching change was needed. The
Mhm.
GM, I know Joe Douglas built up a lot of good faith with the fan base, and not for no good reason. He drafted some really good players. A lot of the players that are still good and young on this team are because of him. But I think we all
Mhm.
understand that that was kind of part of it.
Yep.
The controversial one was the one to go ahead and swap out Aaron Rodgers for Justin Fields. I know that you've done film review on Justin Fields, and obviously you rewatched all the games last year with Rodgers.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is a significant downgrade going from Rodgers to Fields? Do you think it's justifiable? Like, where's your head at with the quarterback decision they made?
Yeah, no. I think it was time to move on from Rodgers just because I don't think this team with Rodgers was going to be, a playoff hopeful. And I think at the very best, like, okay, maybe wild card, but are you going to pour, all of that money into the roster with the extra hits you take on from Rodgers, the extra hits you take on from Devontae, and then obviously trying to add to the team to make us a Super Bowl team. I don't think it was worth it. So I think it was a good decision to get rid of him. And, it's not because I don't think he's polar. I think when I say polarizing, people think like, oh, I'm saying that Rodgers is an ass. I don't mean that, but he is polarizing, whether that be good or bad. Just in general, he is polarizing. So I don't, as a new head coach coming to the team and trying to establish a culture, I understand them not wanting Rodgers for that reason as well. I don't think that's the only reason. I think it's more so the fact that they weren't going to necessarily go anywhere meaningful with him. But I also understand, like, secondarily, that you don't want to try to establish a culture with a guy that's polarizing or that polarizing in your locker room, especially at the quarterback position. So I understood it. And then you're looking at the options in free agency. Really it was a lot of guys. There wasn't a lot of guys with long-term potential. And if you looked at the guys with long-term potential, I think that Justin Fields was one of the best ones out there. Like, there really wasn't a lot out there in terms of quarterbacks. It was Sam Darnold, who's not going to come back to the Jets, right? Geno changed teams, but he's not coming back to the Jets. And then past that, it was a bunch of like older dudes who didn't really have a future. So you're taking a shot in the dark with Justin Fields. They want to be a run heavy team. Justin Fields obviously aids that by you need an extra guy in the box to take care of him as well. He's a top 3 quarterback in the NFL in terms of running the ball. Now passing obviously has quite a bit to go, but I think it's him, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. So he aids the running game quite a bit. And the drop off, yeah, I think there's a drop off. Like, I think Rodgers is still probably an average-ish quarterback, right? Better towards the later end of the year, but he was still not good. Like, he was definitely not good last year, but I think you're going from average to below average. So you're probably going from, like, I don't know, the 18th best quarterback in the league to like the 25th or something like that. How do you quantify that? Like, who is he actually 18th, 25th?
Right.
That's kind of just like a
Maybe like
general
a tier
ranking.
lower.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a tier lower, but he has more upside, right? Like,
Mm.
I think if you make Justin Fields, if you take advantage of him in the running game, like the Steelers did not do, because I think the Steelers more built that offense for Russell Wilson, right? And you're not going to build it around the running game like you would with if it was just straight Justin Fields offense. So I think there's a chance he could be just as good or lead just as efficient of an offense as Rodgers, just different looking, passing versus running. I think it's a possibility. And again, and there's that long-term upside. What if you get that for the Jets, it seems odd to even say it, but like you get that lightning in a bottle with a quarterback where, like the Vikings got with Darnold or like the Seahawks got with Geno, so who's to say the Jets can't replicate that? I think it's a good shot to take. And I'm excited to see it, especially again, just emphasizing that free agency really didn't offer much. And then even the draft didn't really offer much. So what are you going to do? You're just going to punt the year and go with Tyrod? Like, no, I understand wanting to, inject some youth into the quarterback position. And again, even if you think it's as low of, as a 5 or 10% shot of him working out long term, it's better than a 0% shot. Yeah. Better than zero. It's possible. And again, like sell guys like Garrett Wilson on, hey, Tyrod Taylor's gonna be your quarterback this year, and we're just gonna punt the year. Like, I don't think those guys would buy in a lot. So I like the swing. Again, I think he's a little bit probably like a tier below Rodgers. I think you said that perfectly. But I think he can get up to Rodgers' tier, even if not past it. Obviously, if he reaches his ceiling, I'm not necessarily guaranteeing that's going to happen, but there's definitely a possibility of it.
Right, and obviously Joe is talking about the current version of Aaron Rodgers. He's not saying that Justin Fields is going to be a 4-time MVP. I know some people conflate that, but so you bring in Fields, and I definitely agree with you. And I think to me, it wouldn't have been crazy if they kept Rodgers too, just because the same argument applies. There's not good options. But once they decided that we're going to have a new quarterback, I think Fields, just like you said, he was the only guy who offered a above 0% chance to be one of those reclamation projects. I mean, even Derek Carr has since retired. I mean, Kirk Cousins looked like, Matt Ryan on the Colts those last 8 games last year. So not a lot of great options. Tyrod actually, to me, Tyrod can play, but he can play for 4 games until he's injured. So that's kind of, if you're going into the season with Tyrod Taylor, you're really just looking at who's your backup, because they're playing at least half the games. So I'd agree with that. Now with Fields, what do you think from a coaching perspective? Like, what do you think is the primary thing that, and I know it's hard to pick one because they all relate to each other, but is there one thing you look at where, man, if he can just make significant improvements in this area, we could really have something here?
Yeah, and in terms of Tyrod too, like right now, he's an efficient quarterback. Like he would be a lower tier starter, and it's kind of hard to say off the top of my head, but like gun to my head right now, for one game, Tyrod versus Justin Fields, just to win that game, I might pick Tyrod.
Yeah.
Like he's actually a pretty solid quarterback. It's just the injury problems, which I think when you factor in the fact that like he played behind a terrible Giants offensive line with no receivers, like it's probably a reason he had to hold the ball and he got hit more.
I thought Tyrod would give us a better shot than Rodgers this week, honestly.
Yeah. But in terms of Fields, like again, it is hard to say. For me, it's like pre to post snap reading. There are some times where it seems like he should get off of his first read a lot quicker than he does. Just based on the pre-snap read, and he'll hang on to that first read forever. So I think pre to post snap reading on that first read would be huge for him, because he's not a quarterback who's going to go like front side to back side. Really, he's going to be a quarterback 1-2 and check down. Really, so you're hoping that's obviously Garrett, Mason Taylor, and then Breece, and that's why I predict them, to be the top 3 in targets. So if he can get off of that first read quicker, process it better pre-snap, and then get to the second read, I think that would be a massive improvement. And then really past that, like I think secondarily, you have to mention his anticipation of windows. That's probably the next biggest thing for him as a passer. So if he can improve on those 2 things, and again, because of his legs are so good, if he can just become an average passer, that he could be an above average quarterback, because his legs are so damn good. It's kind of what we said, like, and again, I'm not comparing him to Becton. It's almost like Becton, like, hey, the dude is so big. If he can just have average technique, he could be a very good player, because he's so massive that his technique doesn't need to be perfect. And kind of a similar thing with Justin Fields, like, his arm is strong, so he doesn't need to have perfect anticipation, but he offers so much in the run game that if he can just become an average passer, again, he would be a very solid quarterback. So pre-snap reading, getting off of that first read. And there's even times where it's just so inconsistent, where there's times he'll not come off of it quick enough, and there's times he comes off of it too quick and then he's open. And it's like, so the consistency with the reads is definitely the biggest thing. And I would say secondarily, it's anticipation with Justin Fields.
Do you think that because, and I've watched like all of his like dropbacks in Pittsburgh, but that's like on YouTube where you can't like see who's that's downfield, but just to get a sense of like, him throwing the football. And I will say, I know some people act like he's like Tim Tebow or something. It's not like he's the most craziest inaccurate quarterback. It's not like you're watching him and, oh my gosh, he's dirting, screen passes like Zach Wilson, whatever the case may be. So there were some shots like down the boundary. I'm like, okay, there's some stuff to like there. Yeah. It seemed like he almost, like, especially last year, it was a ton in the flat and up the seam. And So I don't know if there was a coaching thing where they didn't want him throwing over the middle of the field, or if he doesn't look comfortable there. But I also know that like charts that Nania has shown where the Lions offense was like the most targeted over the middle of the field in the NFL. Do you like, so I'm wondering, do you think that's like something that Fields wasn't comfortable doing, or was that just their philosophy of in Pittsburgh from a coaching perspective?
Yeah, it's hard to say because like I didn't watch Arthur Smith prior to Pittsburgh to know like okay,
Right, to
did
get a
he
baseline.
change that for Fields? But I would say like there's a reason that Rodgers avoided the middle of the field, and it's because I can curse on this channel, right? Like
Yeah.
there's more shit going on over the middle of the field. Like there's more there, so there's more to worry about. So you have to be a better processor, you have to have better vision. So that's why Rodgers avoided it, because it's much more dangerous over the middle. So you need a really good processor over the middle. So I do think they'll change philosophies a little bit, because Goff, he's not the athlete that Fields is.
Right.
He doesn't have the arm that Fields does, but he's a better processor than Fields. If you could put Jared Goff's brain into Justin Fields, you have a very good quarterback, So I think he was able to process over the middle probably a little bit better. But I agree with you in terms of Fields, like good arm. There's sometimes he puts too much heat on a ball, like Zach Wilson will. There's sometimes he can miss high or maybe miss behind a little bit, but overall, like inaccuracy isn't one of his flaws, I would say, or at least not a major flaw. Good deep ball thrower, just like you said, so you could take advantage of that with Justin Fields. But I think the offense is going to be a lot of like trickery and a lot of kind of eye candy in the backfield. Again, 1-2 reads and then get to your check down. I think it's going to be a lot of getting out, cutting the field in half, like you kind of do with a rookie quarterback. And then, like you could take 10 or 15 concepts that Justin Fields is very comfortable with in terms of intermediate passing, over the middle passing. And you could run those 10, 15 concepts in literally 400 ways. Like you could run the same concept 30 different ways. So from different looks, different motions, different, rollouts, whatever it may be to that side. So I think that's what you try to do with Fields. Again, a lot of running game, a lot of eye candy, some vertical shots, and then just take 10 plays he's very comfortable with and just keep drilling them in different ways. And that's kind of more your intermediate passing game. But I really don't think you like have to overcomplicate it with him. So if he's not comfortable, over the middle, then don't do it too much. Again, just take those few he's comfortable with. But yeah, it takes a better processor, and it's just a lot more risky over the middle.
Yeah. Well, I do know, I did notice that to look at the charts, like Russell Wilson, they didn't have him throw over the middle either. But then I looked at his whole career and he never did that. So I'm like, I don't know what to make of this, but we'll see.
Yeah.
It definitely seemed like there were some training wheels on in Pittsburgh, where they pretty much said like, we're going to take our boundary balls because there's lower interception risk, obviously, than like throwing balls over the middle. And we're going to score, 17, 18 points, and we're going to let our top three defense win the game. Where I think for the Jets, if you're going to make the bet on Fields, it would be pointless to pay him, 30 million guaranteed to do that. You actually want to push him to play real quarterback, which the coaching staff has pretty much come out and said, like, no, we think he can do that. So I'm excited to give him a shot. And like me and guys listening, me and Joe both are fully aware, like we're not complete homers. We know there's a world in which it's like, oh, actually Justin Fields just isn't one of the 12, 15 human beings on earth who can be like a franchise quarterback. We unequivocally know that's possible.
A better chance than not.
Of course, right there. Of course, and his contract reflects that. We know that, but there's stuff to work with there. Like there's tools to where I don't think and even if what he's been so far, it's not like he is like the 40th best quarterback in the league or something. Like he's already a low end starter that you can win games with. Can he get better in some areas? And then all of a sudden you have like, the 17th best quarterback in the NFL, where you're having a conversation about a contract. Like that's the window in which we're discussing. Cause I know I see comments like we get it, but we also, I think it's realistic to say that he does have a shot. It's not like we're talking about Tim Boyle or anything like that.
Can I make one comment? I think it's funny that you can tell you're battle tested because you're responding to the comments before they even come, so you don't have to respond to the comments. I do the same thing, and that's why I could talk about a subject for an hour, because I just take it from 1,000 different ways just to respond to the commenters. I completely understand it.
Well, yeah, because doing it live, you can kind of do that. And I don't like responding to comments on videos because I feel like, it's like tone and everything. I kind of like to be sarcastic and stuff. So people take it the wrong way. So just a caveat in there. We're not being like complete homers. We know that. But but if there's stuff to work with Fields for sure. So when we look into the draft, let's start with the hot button one, because I never seen a GM and coach fired for their first 4th round pick before he takes the field. But our guy Arian Smith, I I was a little surprised because typically we try to have a more open mind with a new regime, like they get a honeymoon. But I think Jet fans were just so beaten down after the playoff drought. Like it was very negative response. And obviously he's got the drop rate, but you watch Arian Smith, and again, like I'll let you touch to the finer points, but I'm not as smart as Joe, but sometimes that means you don't have to overcomplicate shit. And I'll tell you this, he is holy shit fast. Because sometimes guys they run whatever, they don't test as fast. Even Denzel Mims, he was like a high 4.3s guys, but he couldn't really separate.
He ran like a high 4.4, high 4.5 on the field.
Yeah, and he was like even in college, he was more of a contested catch guy, so he wasn't really that burner.
Yeah.
But Arian Smith, there's balls where like he'll have like a 15-yard cushion and destroy it and beat the guy by 10 yards. So that's my analysis of it. Now I'll pass it to you to give us some more of the fancy buzzwords.
I think it's a thing, and like I think you'll be surprised at some of the players I dislike more than fans do, who are they're higher on. And there's some people that fans dislike that I'm higher on personally. And Arian Smith is one of those. I'm not going to say I condone the fourth round pick. I don't know if it's one I would have made. Now, if I was a guy who didn't have a full-time job and a kid and all this stuff, I could watch all these guys prior to the draft, and I would say, I would have rather had this guy. So in general, like, gun in my head, maybe I wouldn't have picked him, but I understand the pick fully. Like, I think in the fourth round, you take a shot on elite traits. Anywhere past and obviously you want to in the entire draft, but you see a guy, and like you said, like he is fast. I think really look at his time of 4.36, and I think people, again, like Denzel Mims ran 4.38. They are nowhere close in terms of on-field speed. Arian Smith is like, you look at him, and he looks like he should have ran a low 4.3 or a high 4.2. Like he is that fast in the field. So I think you look into the fourth round, and again, take that shot on an elite traits guy, and he has that elite speed. He has really good body control. He gets out of his breaks really, really well. Like, there's some refinement in route running. He needs to obviously catch the ball better. It was a little bit concerned. It's not a real concern, but like a little bit concerned to hear him say that, like just catching the ball is a focus thing. There's not technique improvements you can have in catching the ball. And I was like, what? Like there's definitely quite a bit of technique improvements, extending to the ball, having tighter hands, not letting it cross your eye level. Like there's a lot of technique improvements you can have with catching a ball, but nonetheless, hopefully improves on that. But again, I get banking on elite traits, and specifically with this offense too. Like, and I'm not saying he's Jameson Williams, but look at the Lions. Like they had that burner over the top, take the top off the defense. And I think Garrett Wilson's going to be more so in the slot. So I looked at this offense before the draft, and I'm like, they're really lacking like a true X receiver. And X receiver is not a number one receiver. Like, you could be a number one in the slot. Like, I think people can fight like, Garrett Wilson's elite. Like, okay, yes, I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying I don't think he's a true X because he doesn't win vertically as much as you want. He doesn't get off the presses as consistently as you want. So I looked, I'm like, okay, do you have a guy who can win vertically because of size in the draft, later on? I was like, I don't know, maybe McMillan or early in the draft, but obviously they didn't pick him. So I'm like, okay, it's either going to be a guy who's contested catch guy at X, who can get off the press a little bit, or it's going to be like that blazing 4.2, 4.3 guy. They picked Arian Smith. I'm like, okay, it was actually relatively predictable in terms of the type of receiver they'd want. So again, familiarity in terms of the offense, like Jameson Williams to him in terms of the blazing speed. And again, I think it was a true need for really any offense. So it really made a lot of sense to me. And again, doubling that with banking on the speed, it was not something I was shocked about at all.
No, yeah. And I think you said it perfectly. Like we can live in a world in which it's like, that's not the name we were rooting for. Like that's not the name that I was like, hoping for when they picked him, but also you can see how it makes sense and that there's a elite trait they're betting on. I did also see that all of the receivers that ran, the guys who ran like between 4.25 and 4.4, the Blazers, every single one of them was drafted like 2 full rounds higher than projected. Like Dante Thornton Jr. is supposed to be a 6. So clearly NFL, like we could say, well, he would have been there in the 6th round. And it's like, maybe, I mean, the Lions traded up for Isaac Tesla, who was supposed to be a 6th rounder. They spent 3 third-round picks on him. Now, the Lions have the clout to where their fan base can trust them because they've been in the playoffs and all that. So I understand it, but I think it's a little naive to say like, oh no, you definitely could have got him in the 6th, 7th round. You didn't read the board, right? Like, I get it, and I do mock drafts all the time. So I play armchair GM. I understand.
Exactly.
I hope that's not. But I don't think it's hypocritical what I'm saying. Like I don't know. There's a limit. Like we can play GM, but there's a limit to saying, hey, I like this guy. He fits in our offense. I think it's another jump to say you didn't read the board right because this guy definitely would have been there. Like you just don't know that. I mean,
we talked about it. We talked about it before this. It's the mock drafts. Like, oh, he's always
Right.
available in PFF's mock drafts in the 6th round. You definitely could have got him there. Like, no bullshit. Like it's not real life. Like I'm pretty sure before Trey Smith went in the 5th or 6th round, there are people like, there's no way he falls past the 2nd round. Like there's so much information we're not privy to. Or the corner, I always bring him up. It's not Ward from Ohio State a couple of years ago, but whatever the corner from Ohio State was supposed to be a top 2 round pick, and then he fell, all the way to the 5th or 6th round or whatever it was. So like, yeah, just because of your PFF and PFN mock drafts don't mean these guys are actually going to be in these spots. So again, I think like GMs look at elite traits and what fits their offense. Like there's so many more things working into it than just, oh, well, again, PFN had him at 205 and he was drafted at whatever it was, 120 or, whatever. I actually have no idea, but yeah, that's like the mock. That's like the mock draft syndrome. It's just you can't take that as real life. It's just the reality of it.
We get attached to those names. I remember for the longest time we were getting Trapio from Boston College, a plug and play starting right tackle. We were definitely getting him at 73. He goes to like 49 because of course if he's a starting tackle, like the league is not gonna let him go. But is there any player that they drafted on day 3? Actually, I don't know if it was behind your film mark, but you guys put out an article saying that I don't know if it was Kiko, the linebacker, could have like a secret role. Was that your handiwork there?
Yeah, I don't know if that was maybe
Or maybe it was Barron.
Titled. No. So I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure it was with Kiko that we put that as like my film title, just because obviously you need to make headlines and stuff. But really, that was based in the fact that you have the defense and the defensive corners seem to lean to more 3-4 looks. Like at least Aaron Glenn wants more 3-4 looks, and you could run more 4-3 looks from a 3-4 if you have that like hybrid linebacker D end on your defensive line who plays like stand up but on the line. So I was looking at the draft and I was thinking, what was the Jalen Walker from Georgia? When people were talking about him, I'm like, that would be a surprise pick that a lot of people wouldn't expect, but just based on Glenn's like defensive philosophies and wanting to get that 5th guy in the line of scrimmage, I could see them again running a 4-3, but having that guy in the line of scrimmage and him kind of playing like that hybrid role. And when I watched Kiko, I saw a little bit of that. Like he can pass rusher a little bit. He can actually stand up blockers a little bit better than you'd expect for a guy who's 230, 235. So I think in his rookie year, he's going to be a pretty strictly a special teams guy, but I could see a few reps a game, 4 to 8 reps a game where he's, whether it be, on stunts or just setting the edge or on blitzes, I could see him kind of filling that role. So that was kind of where that stemmed from. Now he has a lot of like physical upside, but there's obviously quite a bit of technical work for Kiko. And his tackling is pretty brutal. He needs to definitely improve the tackling. So yeah, that was the kind of the crux of that headline.
Nice. Yeah, I think that some versatility there was their goal with the 2 Miami guys. I think Barron is probably a little too light to do outside. I'd imagine, but I think he's like
go inside.
You think so? Is it an obvious pass situation so you can go inside?
Yeah. I think if it's 3rd and 10 type deal, like put him on a guard, just like now different than JFM because JFM is stronger and bigger than him, but the similar way where they have not the best athleticism for the edge, but you put them versus a guard and iso them versus a guard, they could win there. So JFM had the versatility to play inside outside on pass and run because he was bigger. Where Barron, I don't think you don't want him inside on the run game. That's for sure. But as a pass rusher, yeah, I think certain scenarios, obvious pass, like you said, he could play against a guard.
Where does Barron, like when you compare him to how you felt about Watts, McGregor, does he stand out as maybe being right away ahead of those guys, or is he just right in the mix there in terms of fighting to get any sort of reps?
Yeah, so I can't speak so much to McGregor because just transparently since then I've watched probably 2,000 reps, so I forget exactly what I remember of him from last preseason, but he ended up playing less than Watts, and I ended up doing an Eric Watts review just to see like, hey, is this a guy who could be DN4 over Clemens? And I think he should be because he carries less cap, and Clemens is obviously Clemens. He doesn't really do anything too well. But Barron definitely has higher athletic upside than Watts. Watts is decent on the edge, but he's very tight, and there is little to no pass rush ability there. Where Barron, I don't think he's a great athlete, but he's definitely like, while he's not super explosive or super fast, he's very like slippery, and for his size, he has pretty good bend. So there's definitely higher upside with him than at least Watts. Again, McGregor, I forget exactly, again, just because so many reps ago. But in terms of Barron versus Watts, I'm taking Barron just because of the physical upside. So he's definitely going to be the backup at the end, or one of the backup at the ends. And I think the interesting question after that is, okay, again, Clemens, Watts, McGregor, did they carry 5? Did they carry 4?
Yeah, from what I remember, Watts I think was decent against the run, but that's probably like his ceiling is just that early. Probably what they wanted to get in Clemens, honestly, is probably what you hope to get out of Watts. So I heard you say that you compared Andrew Beck to, I think, prime Tony Gonzalez is what you said. You're pounding the Beck train, which ironically, like, I mean, I don't know, he might be I think how you put it in one of your streams, I was watching the best non-offensive lineman blocker. And that's a pretty good skill set and a path to make the team. I think he's going to make the team. I don't think it's a coincidence that he was the very first guy that they signed, and he has ties to the special teams coach and the GM via Denver and Houston. So what do you like about Beck?
Oh yeah, good tie there with the special teams coach. I didn't know that's a good nugget to have. First signing, and like it's always so hard to tell in terms of like guys working out from one team to another team or from year to year, just because it's so hard to predict. Because I watched Tyron Smith with the Cowboys and he was awesome. He came to the Jets and he was awful. So like what happened? Like I get the age thing, but like it's just so hard to predict drop off sometimes that you want to be a little bit cautious. But from if he is what he was with the Texans. And even a little, I think he played for the Colts and maybe another team a little bit, like bounced around a little bit more last year.
He was with Denver for a couple of years too.
Denver. Yeah. So he is, and again, based on that film, he is easily, like, not even close, the best skill position blocker for the Jets, like not even close. So I like him. You watch the blocking just in general, like the buzzwords and whatever. I don't have to throw them all out there, but in general, he's very controlled. He's strong, good angles, good understanding. Like he's a very good fullback in terms of blocking, whether that be on line of scrimmage or out in space. I really liked him. And then the thing that was surprising to me is one that people aren't talking about him. He's the first signing, I guess, for low money. It's a fullback, so he's easily overlooked. But you have a team who's going to want to run the ball a lot. Look at the fullback they brought in. Like I heard nobody speaking about him, but then the thing that's surprising about him too is like he played a little bit in line as a wide tight end as well. So he played fullback, he played wide tight end, and when he ran routes, he didn't get the opportunity to do it a lot, but he actually ran like legitimately solid routes. I'm not going to say they're great or as good as Mason Taylor's will be, but in terms of like him versus Jeremy Ruckert on an in or a dig or out or whatever, I might take Beck over Jeremy Ruckert just as a pure route
even
runner.
as a receiver too.
Yeah. As a tight end catching the ball, I have some, the highlight tape I made of him, which is crazy, but I do that. But like he has some one-handed catches, diving catches in contested catch situations, which you had Ruckert who dropped the ball that hit him in his face. There was a game this year, and I try to erase it from my memory, so I forget off the top of my head. But there was a play, I think he's in the flat to the right. He catches the ball, turns up the field, and just drops the ball. He just fumbles it. It's like, what are you doing, dude? So like, Ruckert has shown nothing. Beck is easily a better blocker. I think he's a better route runner. And based on the limited snaps that I've seen of his hands, he has better hands than Ruckert. So why is he not being talked about as potentially tight end 2, fullback 1, H-back 1? Like I think he could legitimately fill that role as long as unforeseen, he just completely fell off a cliff like that happens to players, which is, again, wildly hard to predict. You have no idea when that comes. So that could have happened, and I could be completely wrong and look like an idiot. But based on what he showed on film the last 2 years, I think he should be tight end 2, fullback 1.
Yeah, and you're starting to see the league value that. The Vikings just extended their blocking tight end to like $7 million a year. There was the dude Jackson Hawes, who was like potentially going to be a UDFA, and the Bills ended up scooping him, I believe, in the 5th round. So that'd be a dub signing if they could turn him into tight end 2. When I hear that, though, to me that screams like holy targets for Mason Taylor, right? Because if that's the now I know he's 20, I think he was 20 on draft night, and tight end is a long learning curve position, probably the longest besides quarterback in the NFL. But I think I'd be disappointed if Mason Taylor wasn't just absolutely eating the lion's share of the tight end targets based on how the rest of the roster is constructed, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I think he's going to be too, just based on the offense, just based on Justin Fields and his propensity to throw to tight ends. So I think he'll pretty easily be too. But whether it be Ruckert or Beck, they really shouldn't be throwing to the tight end too a lot anyway. Realistically, again,
Right.
if you're telling me gun to my
And you
head
mean
right
two
now,
behind Garrett Wilson in the total target order?
yeah.
Right.
Mason, yeah, Garrett Wilson, Mason Taylor, Breece Hall is the check down. I think is easily the top three, and probably Reynolds at 4. If I gun to my head. But with Beck, again, you're telling me right now, 5 yard out, him versus Jeremy Ruckert, no matter the situation, I'm taking Beck. So they shouldn't be targeted in general, but I think Beck can be that upgrade. I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about him, but just based on what I watched, I was surprised. Like, he kind of fell by the wayside for me too. And I started looking into, okay, what reviews am I going to start prepping in February? I started watching. I'm like, damn, dude, like I am impressed. And I'm usually known as like quite a bit of a stickler for watching guys. And I like him quite a bit.
Nice. Good. So what do you now they bring in, obviously all we're getting is the snippets of Aaron Glenn putting Rich Cimini in a body bag or whatever, and we like that. So either you love him for that or you hate him for, disrespecting Aaron Rodgers or whatever, although Aaron Glenn will never go on Pat McAfee and give his side of that, so we'll never hear that. But what are your initial takeaways? I think we're always trying to look for differences between the previous guys and the new guys. Reasons for hope. Is it too early to even make any conclusions from like a personality standpoint or leadership, or is there anything that sticks out to you as, hey, maybe this could be different or maybe this could be a positive?
Yeah, I think it's a thing where like realistically, I think what you kind of said, like it's too early. Like that's not the sexy thing to say. It's not going to thing that's going to make the headlines. Oh, I guarantee it, because you don't know. Like Bill Belichick, who, excuse my French, was like a complete douche and completely quiet and silent on the sidelines, worked out and has however many Super Bowls. Where then you have guys like Pete Carroll who have Super Bowls too, who are more players coach and more energetic and stuff. So it's like we get a guy who's quiet. It's get the loud guy, and then vice versa. We get the loud guy who's not working out. It's like you really don't know exactly what's going to happen. But it just seems like it's like. And again, maybe it works out differently, and then I'm pissed off at Aaron Glenn and I'll talk some crap about him. But just based on their personalities and my character reads of people, it seems like Glenn is what Saleh pretended to be. Like I think that's what Saleh wanted to be, and he wasn't that. Like he was too friendly with players. And I'm not saying there's not a place to be friendly with players, but when you have guys playing like crap and you're gloating them up in the media or not benching them or not doing whatever, like it was definitely everybody's been saying it, like that country club vibe with Saleh. Where I think Glenn will, he'll push your buttons in the right type of ways. And he'll be a more strict coach, but as long as you win, like it doesn't, it'll be fine. It's really about winning on the field and what he proves there, regardless of what he says in the media. Like, he's a little bit more stern, or he's a little bit more stern with our media. So they'll attack him probably a little bit more and be a little bit more quick to jump ship. But overall, dubs are what matter. Like just win games, and it really doesn't matter about your personality, as long as you're not like Saleh and running again that country club vibe. As long as there's actual accountability, which I think Aaron Glenn will actually have. So,
speaking about dubs, we'll close with this, Joe. So obviously 5 wins last year, big disappointment, and I don't think anybody is saying the Jets have to go on some deep playoff run this year for it to be a success. And maybe it's not necessarily a win total, but is there some sort of barometer of like results for this season where you could feel like at the end of it, you're feeling optimistic about the direction of the new GM and head coach?
Yeah, I think it's a thing where like, and it's probably been said too much, right? But like be competitive in most games, don't shoot yourself in the foot. Don't have 1,000 delay of games. Don't take a timeout after a timeout, like just like the very low bars to clear that we've seen in recent years. So I'm looking for him to not be a complete fool. And I know it's like, that's my bar is higher than that, but really be competitive, come out after bye weeks and maybe look prepared. Don't give up. Don't lack, discipline. Don't lack effort in certain times. Like we've heard it from a couple of guys now, but like even on the film, it seemed like guys like Sauce got a little bit lazy. It seems like Q got a little bit lazy. It feels like he really lost the players last year.
And Reddick and Kinlaw out there freelancing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just complete me guys. I still have no idea how we got $7 million from the Jets. I have absolutely no idea how he got $15 million from the Commanders. Just crazy. But yeah, I'm looking for the Jets to be competitive. I'm looking probably like 6-7 wins. Gun to my head. I think their schedule is not. It's not the most brutal schedule I've ever seen, but in my opinion, new staff, new quarterback, new offense, all that stuff. I think you'd want the harder games to be at the end of the season when they can like build up a little bit to it. I think having the tough games at the forefront, it really kind of shoots them in the foot, or it hampers them, because it's going to be, those teams have been together for how long have the Steelers been together? With
Right.
Tomlin, 15, 20 years, wherever, like they're ready to go. Where that's the first game for us. Then you have a bunch of tough games stacked up early. So I'd rather see them late. So first couple of weeks, I don't think they're going to have a lot of success. And I think it's going to be a little hard to bounce back in terms of like their win total. But anywhere really from like 5 to 9 wouldn't surprise me with the Jets. I think 9 being probably about the ceiling. But again, gun to my head, I would say like I'm one higher than Vegas. I think the new coach effect and some of that factors in. So I would, instead of Vegas 5.5, I'd probably put it like 6.5 as my over under for the Jets if I was setting that line.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think if you have to win more games than last year while getting younger and cheaper is a reasonable first year goal. So Jet X Factor, again, the links are in the description below. Is it still how does it work with signing up? I believe I was 5 months when I started, or $5 a month when I started. Is it still at that, or inflation got you guys too?
Yeah, I think it's $6 a month if you buy monthly, $5 if you buy yearly. But then there's also a thing if you're, obviously I'm hoping people like Nania's and Shabo's articles and all that stuff, but you could also just do YouTube. So like if you want just the YouTube content, just the full film reviews, that's $3 a month where you can get that. So yeah, that's really it. Jets X Factor. Follow everybody there. Plenty of articles coming out every day. It seems like 5 or 6 a day, which is ridiculous for this time of year. And then I dropped, or in the process of dropping, 31 reviews of Jets players. So you have a lot of film breakdowns of these guys. And then Joe RB31 on Twitter, which I'm not super active on. I try to respond to people and stuff, but I can't get in 5-hour arguments with people where I'm picking up my phone all the time and then I'm arguing for 5 hours to change absolutely nobody's mind. So I'll answer to people if it's like a legitimate discussion, but people like, respond to a whole 2-hour film breakdown. It's like, no, this guy sucks. Like, I'm not even going to engage because I'm not changing anybody's mind. Like, give me something actual to argue or discuss, and I'll be on Twitter and I'll respond to you. But if it's, this guy sucks, it's not an argument to me.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because they could all be the same internet, but the YouTube comments are really not bad. Like it's usually like substantive when people disagree. But Twitter, that's why I haven't been on Twitter in like almost a month now, because at some point, if you're not gonna like accept, you have to either accept the rules of engagement or just get off the platform. Like you have to accept that this is just punching back and forth. You're gonna call each other names. Like, okay, if you don't, and it's like, okay, you don't want to do that, then I just leave it be.
Yeah,
it's
Twitter's definitely a cesspool for sure, but like YouTube can have it sometimes too, where like people like people miss all the time on breakdowns and like and just prospects in general. Like NFL guys do it too. But like I got a comment the other day was like, oh, Blewett told me that Breece Hall will be better than Devon A-Chain. He has no credibility. And I was like, you're talking about Breece Hall last year, who was like a top 3 drafted guy in fantasy. Like, yeah, I think 99% of people thought that, but my bad, dude. Like it is what it is. So you just got to know what to respond to. Who's trying to have an actual legitimate conversation, and who's just trying to spark rage and arguments because they don't really have much else going on realistically.
Yeah, you got another difference there. But Breece Hall is a massive wild card in this offense. So contract year, I mean, the difference between him in 2023, or 2024, like whatever version you get, like that could easily be a 2-win swing, because last year he was pretty much like a mid running back, and I know like we always want to throw like all the contexts in there, and like I get it, like Keith Carter and all that stuff, but to me, like, dude, he just wasn't the same dude. He didn't have the juice. He didn't have he said the injury was bothering him. He wasn't breaking tackles. Like he didn't have and think about it, the 2023, the offensive line was way worse. He had Zach Wilson. He had the same crappy coaching staff. So obviously it wasn't the same. So if they can get Breece Hall, who's like a 1,200 yard, 4.7 yard per carry back, that'd be huge.
Yeah. And again, like I think fans tend to want to blame people who are not here anymore because then it's easy to just pass off blame and say, oh, well, the guy we have is better. You know, like, he's not the problem. That's just like an easy way to fan kind of. But realistically, like I looked at him like, okay, what is wrong with him? Because like people are like, oh, the injury, you know, that he had 2 years ago. I'm like, okay, well, why was he more explosive the year after the injury than 2 years after the injury? Like that makes no sense, you know? So the explosion numbers were down, the top speed was down. I think he was injured, but there's legitimate problems, and like I know that, you know, he's kind of a fan favorite, or he was at least. So it's, you know, some people crap on you as soon as you say anything bad about Breece Hall, but I think mid is at best. Like he was mid at best last year. You look at the yards per carry. Now yes, part of the offensive line or the run scheme, part of it was the fact he couldn't get into a rhythm because Rodgers kept checking at passes. Like I get all that stuff, but he fumbled. He was like top 5 or top 10 in both fumbles and drops. Everybody talks about
Which
how good
is
of a
not
receiver he was.
coaching or anything
You know,
related.
like
So
so he couldn't catch the ball. He couldn't break tackles. I think he broke 7 tackles last year overall. I think that's the number, which is absurd. That's an absurdly low amount of tackles. And then I have plays of him either having bad vision or quite literally falling down into contact. Like, okay, it's a little bit of a cloudy situation and just falling into the D end and not trying to make a play happen. So I think that may be part of the injury. Like, hey, I'm just going to take my L here and not really try to explode and stuff. So maybe that's a huge part of it. But not breaking tackles, not having good vision, dropping the ball and fumbling the ball are not conducive to being a good running back. So I really, like, you know, gun to my head, if I really had to contextualize, like, okay, where exactly was he? Was he the 16th best, like mid? Is that mid, like a 16th overall running back? Yeah. I think he was a lower end starter last year. I think he's probably closer to 25, 26, 27, 28 in the NFL last year. So you go from being a top 5, top 10 guy all the way down there. Scheme, whatever it might have been, if we can get a plus average Breece Hall this year, it would make a huge impact because last year, you know, I'll use this term, he was a jag at best last year.
Right. And obviously, like, the fumbles and drops are just like compound confidence issues, probably because I don't think he had those issues the first 2 years or in college. So just an overall, like, all these guys had down years. So hopefully we can get some bounce backs. Even guys like Quincy and Quinnen were not in their all pro form. I think firing your GM and coach midseason probably, you know, hindsight have a lot to do with that. It's a human sport. So there's some reason for hope that those guys can bounce back and maybe win some games. But until then, we will talk Jets football soon. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Go Jets.